Good afternoon, everybody. This meeting is called to order. Trollman, has anyone signed up for public comment?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Les Trobman, General Counsel. We have one person registered for the public comment session this afternoon. After I recognize you, please unmute yourself and state your name and who you represent for the record before going ahead and proceeding with your comments. We have Jody Barr.
Hello?
I'm not Jody Barr, but I was just asked to unmute. I'm Joan Altobelli with the YMCA.
Well, first we have Jody Barr to present in public comment.
Yes.
Jody?
Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Commissioners, Director Cerna, my name is Jody Barr. I'm a reporter with KXAN here in Austin. I asked each of you for an interview several days ago. Are you ready? I'm sorry.
Yes, please proceed.
Okay. I'm Jody Barr with KXAN News here in Austin. I asked each of you for an interview several days ago, but we did not get a response from any of the three of you, and that's what's brought us to this meeting to try to get these questions asked and hopefully answered on behalf of more than 300 unemployed Texans who contacted us begging to be put into contact with the TWC. Here are the questions we would like for the three commissioners to please provide us and the public the answers to. We're now 5 months into the pandemic. You've opened 8 call centers, put more than 1,000 call takers to work. Those call centers are open 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. Why are people still unable to contact these call centers to get their unemployment problems taken care of? Are you all going to answer as we go, or are you just taking the comment as I've got a few more points?
We'll just take your comments and then follow up as necessary.
Okay, thank you. The next point is we sent the TWC 111 names last month of people who have placed thousands of calls to your call centers. They were not able to get through. We aired an update last week where your agency said the best advice to those people still having trouble getting through to the call centers today is to just keep calling. We got 300 new complaints just in the last week from people across the state of Texas having the same problem, and it's simple. They cannot get through to the call centers. Is there no other answer than to just keep calling? We've also compiled 300 new names. All of these new complaints, we will be sending those to your communications office. But I think you all would agree that this isn't the role of a media outlet to be this conduit, that these people who are trying to get through to y'all would like to be able to follow the process of the TWC so that they could be provided the services that their tax dollars pay for. We're also looking into the time it takes for the TWC to hear an appeal. People tell us right now that it's taking upwards of 3 months in some cases for an appeal to be heard. Can you tell us how that is happening, why, and is there any way to speed this up? And the last question we would like to have answered is, do you find it acceptable that 5 months into this, we have just heard from 300 unemployed Texans? Those are just the people who have seen our report, who have written in. We don't know what that number is statewide, but is it acceptable 5 months into this for these people to still be falling through the cracks and unable to get a dime out of the Unemployment Commission so they could continue to support their families and keep roofs over their heads and food on the table? And thank you very much for hearing us out.
All right, thank you. Mr. Trollman, is there any additional public commentary?
No, not during the public comment session. And when we get to the child care items, we will proceed with that topic. So with that, I think we have the UI docket before you.
All right, thank you very much. Let's move to agenda item 3. Good afternoon, Ms. Miller.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
There you are. Let's see, under agenda item 3, we have no cases to reconsider. Is that correct?
That is correct. No cases.
Under agenda item 4, tax liability cases, I believe we have 3 tax cases on docket 33.
Yes, sir, that is correct. The first case is TD-19-049-0319. Commissioner Demerson,
Agree with staff recommendation.
Commissioner Alvarez,
I agree with staff's recommendation.
and Mr. Chairman.
I agree with staff recommendation.
The second case is TD-20-082-0620. Commissioner Demerson,
Agree with staff recommendation.
Commissioner Alvarez,
I agree with staff's recommendation.
and Mr. Chairman.
I agree with staff recommendation.
And the final tax case is TD-20-083-0720. Commissioner Demerson
I agree with staff recommendation.
and Commissioner Alvarez
I agree with staff's recommendation.
and Mr. Chairman.
I agree with staff recommendation.
Thank you very much.
We have no fair housing cases under agenda item 5, is that correct?
That is correct. No cases.
Let's move then to agenda item 6. We have no wage claim cases pulled for additional discussion on docket 33.
That is correct. You should have already received the short form dissent list.
Move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining wage claim cases on docket 33.
I move that we accept the cases on which I am dissenting as reflected on wage claim short form dissent list for docket 33.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I'm dissenting as reflected in the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 33.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Let's move to agenda item 7 and consideration of unemployment insurance cases on docket 33. Please proceed when you're ready.
Case number 2496112, Commissioner Demerson.
The AT decision should be affirmed. I agree that the claimant filed a timely Rule 16 petition to reopen. On good cause, the claimant missed the hearing because she was out of town and did not have anyone checking her mail. She knew that TWC had mailed documents to her, but made no attempts to contact the agency for clarification. The claimant could have participated in the hearing had she taken reasonable steps to do so. Remanding this case for additional testimony as to why the claimant was out of town would not change the analysis of this case, since the record already establishes that her failure to participate in the hearing was due to circumstances within her control. As to the job separation, the claimant violated the dress code policy and was insubordinate to her supervisor. As a deputy, it was imperative that the claimant follow policies that were in place to protect the lives and property of herself and others. Misconduct was established, and we should affirm the AT decision. The claimant filed a timely Rule 16 petition to reopen. The claimant did not have good cause for a non-appearance. Misconduct, reimbursing employer not bill, sever adequate employer response.
The portion of the AT2 decision ruling that the claimant filed a timely petition to reopen should be affirmed because the claimant provided sufficient evidence to establish she submitted her petition to reopen before the deadline. The AT decision should also be remanded to develop the record on the claimant's good cause for her non-appearance at the AT1 hearing. She testified that she missed the hearing because she was out of town. The hearing officer did not develop the record as to why she was out of town, and she has subsequently indicated that she had a family emergency. The case should be remanded to properly establish the relevant facts about why she missed the AT1 hearing, the AT hearing. Timely petition to reopen and remand on good cause issue.
I'll concur with Commissioner Alvarez.
All right, I share a short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Demerson. Next case, please.
Case number 2515434, Commissioner Alvarez.
This case should be reheard for the timeliness. The claimant's late appeal clearly states that he has not received a decision and is still waiting on one. Therefore, in this case should be reheard to take testimony regarding the timeliness of the claimant's appeal.
I do not feel there's sufficient evidence in the record to make a proper decision. This is an unusual case involving a claimant who is the owner, operator of a food truck business. He named his business as his last employing unit, but he has been told so far that he cannot do that as a self-employed individual. His business's tax account records indicate that the entity is a limited liability company, but that the business is not a liable employer. The owner type is shown as unknown. The field tax comment screen has no entries. If the claimant has a valid LLC, then he would be employed by his company, and it would be a liable employer that could be named by the claimant as his last work. Apparently, the tax department has not investigated that matter or whether the LLC should have reported the claimant earnings to TWC and paid the state UI tax thereon, but it should be instructed to look into those issues. As to the issue of a late commission appeal, there may be a problem with that since the claimant master file indicates that the business filed a timely response to the notice of initial claim, meaning that his business, whatever its nature, is a party of interest with appeal rights. However, the AT decision from which the claimant allegedly filed a late appeal indicates that his company is MPI, i.e. not a party of interest, and has no appeal rights. On resubmit, following the tax department investigation into the status of the claimant's company and the reportability and taxability of his earnings, I would like to see some commentary from staff as to whether the NPI designation was incorrect and whether that may have misled the claimant, who is the owner operator of the employer, into thinking that he did not have the right to file an appeal.
Timely commission appeal, resubmit.
All right, we have not achieved a majority vote. There's only one vote that the appeal is timely.
Chair, let me consult real quick.
Thank you.
We'll agree with the chairman then.
I agree. I would agree with the chairman as well.
Okay, we're unanimous that there's a timely appeal and resubmit the case. Mr. Chairman, did you want the tax investigation and comments that Commissioner Demerson had requested?
Yeah, certainly.
Thank you. And we will resubmit the case following that tax investigation.
Thank you.
Next case, please.
Case number 2527824, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be reversed. The claimant's mother has dementia and required constant care. The caregiver for the claimant's mother failed to report to work. The claimant was absent because she had to care for her mother. The claimant's reasons for failing to report to work were urgent, compelling, and necessary so as to make the separation involuntary. Reverse the AT, not disqualified, urgent, compelling, and necessary.
The AT decision should be affirmed, although the claimant had a compelling personal reason for missing work on the final incident date. She did not notify the employer of her absence until it occurred. The claimant could have provided timely notice of her absence, but she did not make a diligent effort to do so. Moreover, the claimant had just received a written warning for excessive absenteeism, so she knew her job was in jeopardy at the time. The claimant's failure to provide the employer with proper notice of her absence after prior warnings constituted mismanagement of her position and misconduct connected with the work. We should affirm the AT decision, misconduct.
From the AT, misconduct.
Short form dissent.
Thank you, Commissioner Alvarez. I have your short form dissent.
Case number 2530008, Commissioner Demerson.
The appeal tribunal decision should be modified. The claimant was discharged for refusing to complete her job duties. The claimant had been assigned to perform inventory about a week after being rehired and had assumed the role of assistant manager 2 weeks after being rehired. Since the claimant continued to work under those conditions until the end of her employment, she accepted those conditions as part of her job. The claimant would eventually announce to the employer that she no longer desired to perform her assistant manager duties. As such, it was reasonable for the employer to conclude that the claimant was not going to perform her assigned task. Such a refusal to perform reasonable job duties is misconduct connected with the work. Accordingly, we should modify the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, sever, adequate response.
The decision should be reversed. At the time of the hire, the claimant was told she would be paid $11 per hour to perform the work of a regular shift employee. As time went on, the claimant was given additional duties and the title of assistant manager, but her pay was never increased. Eventually, the additional responsibilities became too much, and the claimant asked to be allowed to return to her prior role. The employer then said, that her pay would be reduced by more than 20%. In line with appeal number 86-6-666-10-102286, this amounts to a constructive discharge. As misconduct has not been shown, the claimant should be qualified for benefits. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback, void response, adequate response.
I'll concur with Commissioner Alvarez.
Short form dissent, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Jefferson. I have your short form dissent.
Thank you.
Case number 2531280, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be reversed. The claimant informed the area manager that the store manager had been requiring the claimant to clock the store manager in when the store manager was not at work. The employer investigated and discharged the store manager. However, the employer also discharged the claimant. As the claimant was only following the store manager's instructions and then reported the issue to the area manager, the claimant's actions were not misconduct. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback, severance issue, and void adequate response.
The appeal tribunal decision should be modified. The claimant was discharged for falsifying time cards by clocking in her manager before she reported to work. While the claimant stated that she did not know clocking in for someone else was against the employer's policy, she also stated she understood that doing so would result in someone getting paid for time they did not work. It is not unreasonable to conclude that a person who participates in assisting another to get paid for time not worked would know or should know that she could get fired for a single incident of such activity. As such, the claimant's actions constituted work-connected misconduct. We should therefore modify the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, sever the adequate response issue, sever the severance issue as well.
Modify the AT, misconduct, no chargeback, sever adequate response, and severance issues.
Short form dissent.
Thank you, Commissioner Alvarez. I have your short form dissent.
Case number 2533581, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision in this case should be reversed. The claimant was discharged because he refused to sign a non-compete agreement. The non-compete agreement in question would have severely restricted the claimant's ability to earn a living after his employment with the employer ended, and he would have no guarantee of any employment with the employer since his employment was at will. The non-compete agreement was completely one-sided and clearly existed only to serve the employer's interest. Non-compete agreements are heavily regulated by the Texas courts, and there is no good chance that this one would have been enforceable. There was no clear and direct evidence presented that the claimant had previously been subject to a non-compete agreement. The evidence presented establishes that the claimant was asked to agree to a substantial change in employment agreement. His refusal to acquiesce did not rise to the level of misconduct connected with the work. Reverse AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
The appeal tribunal decision should be affirmed. The claimant was alerted that he could not resume working until he signed a non-compete agreement. The employer testified that there were no changes to the claimant's position and he had signed a non-compete contract in the past. The employer also testified that the claimant was given the opportunity to have an attorney review the contract, but the claimant refused to sign the non-compete without being granted a 3-year contract. The employer stated that no one else in the company was given a 3-year agreement. As such, the employer's request did not constitute a material change to the hiring agreement, and the claimant's act of refusing to sign the agreement was misconduct connected with the work. We should therefore affirm the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback.
Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Short form.
Thank you, Commissioner Demerson. I have your dissent.
Thank you.
Case number 2539399, Commissioner Demerson.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. It is clear that the claimant was dissatisfied with some aspects of his job. However, the claimant admitted that he did not notify HR about any issues before quitting, and equally as important, the claimant failed to establish that his working conditions were intolerable. By not providing the employer a reasonable opportunity to remedy his concerns and not establishing that his working conditions were so severely adverse as to necessitate leaving without advance notice, the claimant's quitting was without good cause connected with work. Accordingly, we should affirm the AT decision, voluntary leaving, no chargeback.
The decision should be reversed. The claimant was being singled out because some of the managers did not like him. The claimant made several complaints about the mistreatment he was receiving, but the employer did not take his concerns seriously and no resolution was offered. The claimant then requested a transfer, which was also denied. Therefore, the claimant's only remaining option was to quit. As such, the claimant had good cause to quit. Reverse the AT, no voluntary leaving, chargeback.
Affirm the AT, voluntary leaving, no chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Thank you, Commissioner Alvarez. I have your short form dissent.
Case number 2541189, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be reversed. The claimant provided clear and consistent testimony that he did not receive the determination. Nobody else at the claimant's home checks the mail. The claimant was prompt to appeal when he learned his son had received benefits. Since the claimant did not receive the determination, his appeal should be deemed timely. Reverse AT, deemed timely, and resubmit.
The appeal tribunal decision should be affirmed. The claimant filed his appeal well beyond the appeal deadline, and as a result, his appeal is not timely. The claimant guesses that there might have been a problem with his mail, but this explanation seems more speculative than credible and persuasive. The filed documents in this case do not reflect that mail was returned. As such, the claimant is presumed to have received the determination in question, and his filing a late appeal should result in a dismissal for want of jurisdiction. Accordingly, we should dismiss the claimant's appeal as late and leave the underlying determination in full force and effect.
Reverse the AT, timely claimant appeal, resubmit.
Thank you. We will resubmit the case. Next case, please.
Case number 2545838, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision is not supportable. The parties agreed the claimant had her hours reduced by approximately 5 hours per week. The claimant earned $250 per week, which was less than 125% of her weekly benefit amount. As such, the claimant was partially unemployed and her claim is valid. Reverse the AT, valid claim.
The AT decision is not supportable. Under Commission President in Appeal Number 80-288-1-CA-0781 in Section 20.10 of the Total and Partial Unemployment Chapter of the President Manual, the test for determining whether a claimant is fully or partially unemployed at the time of the initial claim is whether the claimant is fully or partially unemployed on the effective date of the initial claim. In this case, even though the claimant worked a partial day in accordance with a reduced schedule on the day she actually filed the initial claim, the claimant's earnings for that week were below 125% of her weekly benefit amount, which meant that she was partially unemployed as of the effective date of her initial claim. Accordingly, we should reverse the AT decision. The claimant was partially unemployed at the time of the initial claim.
Reverse the AT, valid claim.
Thank you. We have a unanimous decision.
Case number 2552575, Commissioner Demerson.
We should dismiss the claimant's appeal to the commission. The claimant's appeal was filed 1 day late and failed to address the issues of timeliness. Because the claimant's appeal is not timely and the claimant alleged neither non-receipt nor delayed receipt of the AT decision, we do not have jurisdiction to consider the underlying merits. Thus, we must dismiss the claimant's appeal and leave the underlying AT decision in full force and effect. But even if the claimant's appeal to the commission were to be considered timely, the claimant filed a late appeal to the appeal tribunal. The claimant admitted that he received the determination and was aware of the appeal deadline. However, he delayed filing an appeal for almost 4 weeks because he was busy looking for work. Such a reason does not meet any of the timeliness exceptions, and as there are no good cause exceptions to the timeliness rules, we do not have jurisdiction to consider the underlying merits and must affirm the AT decision. The claimant filed a late appeal, voluntary leaving.
Although the claimant's CA appeal was 1 day late, as TWC has had issues mailing documents, it is improper to deem the claimant's appeal timely. Similarly, the claimant's appeal to the AT from the job separation determination should also be found timely. As no merits testimony was taken, the case should be remanded to the AT for merits testimony. Deem the claimant's CA appeal timely, reverse the AT timely claimant appeal, and remand.
Timely commission appeal, reverse the AT, timely AT appeal, remand.
A short form dissent.
Thank you, Commissioner Demerson. I have your dissent.
Thank you.
Case number 2555320, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision should be modified. First of all, I agree that the claimant filed a valid claim as an unemployed individual. The claimant was absent from work due to bronchitis. She kept the employer informed of her status until the employer eventually demanded that the claimant either return to work or forfeit her job so that she could be replaced. The claimant was still suffering from symptoms from her illness and also would not have been allowed into customers' homes during the pandemic because she was coughing. She was also, she was involuntarily separated due to personal illness and therefore reasons other than misconduct connected with the work. Modify the AT valid claim, no misconduct.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. First, I agree that the claimant filed a valid claim. As to the job separation, the claimant's doctor released her to return to work after 3 days. Later, although the claimant alleged that she did not feel well, she neither returned to work nor visited a doctor. Thus, because the claimant quit her job while work was still available and her doctor had not advised her to quit, the claimant quit without good cause connected with the work. We should affirm the AT decision. The claimant filed a valid claim, voluntary leaving.
From the AT, valid claim, voluntary leaving.
Short form dissent.
Thank you, Commissioner Alvarez. I have your dissent.
Case number 2557868, Commissioner Demerson.
Modify the appeal tribunal decision. I agree that although the claimant may have quit her assignment due to medical issues, the employment relationship between the claimant and the employer, a temporary help firm, continued even if the assignment had ended. After the claimant reported for reassignment, the employer scheduled a job interview for her the following. As the claimant stated, that job did not pan out. Thereafter, the employer had no more jobs available because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Ultimately, the evidence establishes that the job separation resulted from the natural disaster. As such, the claimant should be qualified for benefits and the employer's account should be protected from charge. We should modify the AT decision. No misconduct, no chargeback, separation caused by the COVID-19 natural disaster, set aside the adequate response.
I would agree to that.
It's unanimous.
Thank you. Unanimous decision. Next case, please.
Case number 2560181, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision should be reversed. The decision to deny the claimant's security clearance was based on hearsay testimony that the claimant admitted to selling drugs to inmates. There was no specific or direct evidence of the claimant's supposed admission provided as evidence. The claimant denied in her sworn testimony of any wrongdoing. The claimant's credible and persuasive testimony denying wrongdoing outweighs the employer's vague hearsay evidence. The employer failed to meet their burden of establishing that the claimant was discharged for misconduct connected with the work. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, bill reimburse an employer.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The claimant was aware upon hire that she was required to obtain and maintain a security clearance in order to continue working for the employer. The claimant's failure to maintain such clearance violated the employer's known requirement and constitutes work-connected misconduct. We should affirm the AT decision, misconduct, reimburse an employer, not bill.
Reverse the AT, no misconduct, bill reimbursing employer.
Short form.
Thank you, Commissioner Demerson. I have that short form dissent.
Thank you.
Case number 2565185, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be reversed. The claimant accepted the employer's offer to self-furlough due to unsafe conditions and household members who were vulnerable to the virus. The employer agreed that at the time the claimant separated, they did not have masks to distribute, and there were concerns with some ill employees. Since the claimant accepted the employer's offer due to unsafe conditions, he should be qualified for benefits. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
The AT decision should be reversed under section 207.046A1 of the Act. The claimant quit when he chose the self-employed option offered by the employer. At the time the claimant quit, the employer was unable to acquire the necessary PPE for the claimant to perform his job. Since such PPE was in scarce supply as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, thus, the claimant's quitting was urgent, compelling, and necessary due to the unavoidable conditions of the job at the time. However, based on the claimant's testimony, a memo should be sent to investigate the claimant's availability for full-time work. We should reverse the AT decision. No voluntary leaving. Separation was urgent, compelling, and necessary. No overpayment, and send a memo to UIO and CS to investigate the claimant's availability for work.
Concur with Commissioner Demerson.
Ms. Miller, I would agree with Commissioner Demerson and Chairman as well.
Thank you. We have a unanimous decision, and we will send that memo to UIO and CS as well. That was the last case pulled for additional discussion. Before we move on to the short form dissent motion, I've been informed that there are two cases missing on Commissioner Alvarez's short form dissent list. And the two case numbers missing are case number 2540618 and case number 2553290. Commissioner Alvarez, with your permission, we will add those two case numbers to the short form dissent list so that all of the cases can be voted today.
Okay, let me just check with staff. Okay, Ms. Miller, that's fine with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
And with those two cases added on Commissioner Alvarez's short form dissent list, Chairman, we're ready to proceed.
I move to accept staff recommendations on the remaining UI cases on docket 32.
I second the motion except for those cases on which I'm dissenting as reflected on the UI short form dissent list for docket 33.
I concur with the chairman's motion except for the cases on which I'm dissenting as reflected in the UI short form dissent list for docket 33.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. This brings us to the end of agenda items 3 through 7. Let's pause for a couple minutes to reset for the rest of the meeting. right, commissioners, are we ready to proceed?
Yes.
Yep. All right, thank you. Let's move to agenda item 8, discussion, consideration, possible action regarding approval of products offered by certified community rehabilitation programs under the Purchasing from People with Disabilities State Use Program.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mr. Cernan. This is Michael Hook of the Vocational Rehabilitation Division. Human Resources Code Chapter 122 and TWC's Chapter 806 requires that TWC determine the fair market price of all products manufactured or provided by individuals with disabilities offered for sale to state agencies and political subdivisions by community programs participating in the PPD program. Today, we have 7 community rehab programs that have presented 39 new products to be purchased through the PPD program. The prices are competitive for those new products, and that the individuals with disabilities are paid above minimum wage. Also, we have 8 community rehab programs that have presented 48 products with price revisions to be purchased through the PPD program. We've once again determined that those prices are competitive, and the individuals with disabilities working on these are paid above minimum wage. We're seeking direction on your potential approval of 39 new products presented by 7 CRPs and 48 price revisions presented by CRPs.
Any comments or questions?
Nothing from here, Chairman.
None here.
Do we have a motion?
I move that we accept the new products and price revisions as discussed.
A second.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 9, discussion, consideration, possible action regarding approval of services offered by certified community rehabilitation programs under the Purchasing from People with Disabilities State Use Program.
And once again, Chapter 122 of the Human Resources Code and TWC's Chapter 806 requires that TWC determine the fair market price of all services provided by individuals with disabilities and offer to state agencies and political subdivisions through the PPD program. The proposed fair market price is determined by state agency negotiations between the state nonprofit WorkQuest and the CRP for each service contract required. Each reviews the contract submission to determine that all requirements are met. We've done so on the following comments, and I have these to present today. We've had community rehab programs that presented temporary, new, renewal, and transferred service contracts to TWC for approval. Quite a few. It's the end of the year, and we have one big one that's an important one that's due at the end of the year. Details as follows. We had temporary service contracts. There's 66 of those. That's totaling about $455,000 with about $200,000 paid to individuals. With 12 individuals working on those, and they're all paid above minimum wage. We have 79 new contracts with 299 individuals with disabilities working on those, and all those individuals are paid above minimum wage. We have 650 renewal contracts. Estimated wages paid on that's about $28 million to individuals with disabilities. 2,668 of them. Individuals with disabilities are all paid above minimum wage. A minimum wage or above, I should say, to be accurate. Transfer contracts. There are 50 contracts totaling about $4 million. We've got 156 individuals with disabilities employed producing those, and all individuals are paid at or above minimum wage. And then finally, we have one statewide umbrella secure destruction services contract that utilizes multiple CRPs. This is a statewide term contract. The contract will replace the existing contract expiring at the end of this fiscal year. There's 6 community rehab programs approved to provide the destruction contract services through this contract. And the Texas Comptroller of Accounts has negotiated price increases for 3 of those 6. The CRPs that are working on these are all paying at or above minimum wage to individuals with disabilities. We're seeking direction on approving all of the above-mentioned contracts offered by community rehab programs. I'll open any questions you may have.
Comments or questions?
Chairman, I just had one question, and it was because I lost him during his remarks. I think I may have a bad connection here. Mr. Hooks, on the 650 renewal contracts, what was the total amount again?
The total amount of the value of the contracts?
Yes.
Right at $58 million.
Okay, great. Great. For some reason, I thought you said 28 million. So clarification. Thank you very much, Mr. Hooks.
Yes, sir.
No questions. None here.
None? Do we have any motions?
Yes, sir. I move that we approve service contracts offered by CRPs under the Purchasing and Peoples with Disabilities Program as recommended by staff.
Good second.
It's been moved and seconded. We're unanimous. Thank you. We'll be postponing item 10 to a future meeting. Under agenda item 11, I'm informed staff does not have anything additional to present under this item.
We do not.
Let's move to agenda item 12, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding guidance on resource utilization and implementation of services and strategies to target disaster relief efforts and public health emergencies, including those funded the Department of Labor's Disaster Dislocated Worker Grant. We have two items here. The first item, actually Reagan has both items, so let's turn it over to Reagan Miller.
All right, thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. For the record, Reagan Miller with the Child Care and Early Learning Division. The first issue I'll discuss concerns school-age child care. So today we are seeking your direction in how we authorize child care for school-age children as the next school year begins. Traditionally, school-age children are authorized to receive part-time after-school child care during the school year. However, due to the impacts of COVID, Texas school districts are considering alternative instructional models. The Federal Office of Child Care has recently issued guidance noting that it is up to each state to determine if they will pay for full-day subsidies when children are completing remote learning. They also provided guidance that states cannot use CCDF to fund instruction or any educational services. The Office of Child Care also notes that they encourage states to set parameters that restrict the use of CCDF for child care services during times when schools are open and children are able to attend. Due to COVID, and based on guidance from the Texas Education Agency, some schools may now be closed to in-person instruction at the beginning of the school year or at periods during the year. As I said, historically, we've only authorized part-time after-school care during the school year, but during times of school closure, working parents may be in need of full-time childcare. I will note that these initial closure periods are temporary. The TEA guidance does require that following the beginning of the school year, schools physically reopen and that parents are provided with the option of in-person instruction. We are seeking the Commission's direction on the following. For students who do not have the option to physically access in-person instruction based upon the school schedule, allowing the authorization of full-day subsidies, and for students who do have the option to physically access in-person instruction based upon the school schedule, we would only authorize after-school part-time subsidies as we have traditionally done during the school year. And that concludes my presentation.
Mr. Trobman.
Commissioners, for the record, Wes Trobman. We have 8 individuals who have registered to address the commission on this topic. Once I announce your name, go ahead and please unmute yourself and state your name and who you represent for the record before going ahead and proceeding with your comments. First up, we have Joan Altobelli.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing for public comment. I am with the Ymca of Austin, and throughout the COVID period, we have been providing childcare for children of essential workers. And then when opened up, we are allowed for providing summer camp for all children who needed to access that. We are currently serving children on an extended summer because of the school year calendar being changed, but we will in the next few weeks be providing support during the virtual presentation of instruction during an 11.5-hour day of full-time daycare. If we were to reduce the rates for the provision of that 11.5 hour to the part-time reimbursement rate, instead of just losing $55 an hour, which is what we lose when you reimburse us with the full-time enhanced rate, we would be losing a double amount, to which would be $122 per child per week. And we serve currently this week 70 children who are on CCS scholarships. So that results in $8,540 a week, or translates to $33,160 per month. The YMCA is a nonprofit organization. We are losing money on having unlimited amounts of children who qualified through the CCS funding. We will, for the first time in 50 years, have to reduce the number of children we accept who are coming to us with CCS fundings with a loss of $33,000 a month. Last month of July, we lost $365,000 total just from our limited amount of services and limited amount of space to provide. So I would like to encourage you to not change during this period of time. They do receive instruction during the 11.5 hours that we see them, but we cannot tell our employees to go home. They still are supervising the children, helping with toileting and restroom breaks, helping them with any Wi-Fi or electronic issues, technology that they have during the instruction. This is still full supervision. We're keeping their masks on because they're with their classmates. We're keeping them socially distanced. We need to be paid at the full rate. So my suggestions to you are, please do not drop the rates while we're providing 11 hours and 15 minutes of licensed childcare from 7:15 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., regardless of whether the schools are providing a short period of time of virtual instruction during these days. If you do choose to drop the rates, please do not do that till after the second wave of infections happens, when school will likely go virtual instruction again in the spring. Please consider not doing this until at least March of 2021 with a reduction of fees. Parents have to go to work. Parents need affordable childcare. Schools are only providing supervised instruction in person for a couple of hours a day, or even virtually for a couple of hours a day. We have them the rest of the day. The enhanced rate, along with the full day rate, has allowed us to provide services and still only lose $55 per day, or $3,800 a week, or $15,000 a month. If that doubles, we will have to reduce our enrollment. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Next up, Stephanie Bustos. Go ahead and unmute yourself if you are there. We have, next up, we have Cynthia Simpson. Go ahead and unmute. Next, we have Tama Bankhead.
This is Cynthia Simpson. Can you hear me?
Yes, Ms. Stimson. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Cynthia Simpson. I'm the owner of Cornerstone Childcare in Fort Worth, Texas. I agree with the previous comments with Joan as far as the financial impact, but I also would like to point out some of the family impacts that this would do. We've been servicing, my center is approximately 80% subsidy children. We're in a very at-risk community. We've been servicing essential workers since this pandemic began. Therefore, a lot of these students have been in the same controlled groups since March and April. Parents are apprehensive, even if there is in-person learning at these schools, parents should have the choice whether they put their students back into a new group of students. They're comfortable with the fact that they've been in somewhat of a controlled environment, at least within our school. We cannot control, obviously, what people do when they're out in the public, but while their children in our care, they have been in the same groups with the same children for the past 5 months. Putting the parents in a position where they have to send their children to school, if that's an option, most of our districts are doing parent choice, virtual learning or in person. If you give the parents no option and they have to put them back in public school, not only are you causing their children to blend with new groups, but then those children can bring it back to siblings, and those siblings are in our care. So the ripple effect of all that is way greater than we all see. The other thing I'd like to point out is that many of our families in this high-risk area do not even have internet access. By providing virtual learning at our school in these controlled groups, they are able to have internet access with no problem. So I do not agree with, I do agree with the continued full-time if they don't have in-person, but I do not believe there should be a choice where the parent is forced to go back to school if they're not comfortable with the exposure for their children. Thank you.
Thank you. Tama Bankhead.
Good afternoon. My name is Tama Bankhead. I'm one of the directors of Lionheart Children's Academy. We're located throughout the state of Texas with, 9 academies here. Rather than just rehash numbers as been shared, I would like to agree with my colleagues Joan and Cynthia for the same reasons. If the funding is not available, services will not be available for our families. The care that they are asking us to provide is needed, but it can only be done so with adequate funding. Thank you for your time.
Jacob Stewart.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, hi, thank you so much. I agree with the others that have gone before me. First, a little bit about myself. I am with the Early Care and Education Consortium, which represents multiple high-quality child care providers throughout the state. Altogether, our members operate over 550 centers across Texas that employ nearly 13,000 educators and staff, and normally have the capacity to care for over 72,000 children. And just like those that went before me, we definitely urge the commission to do full day rates and ensure there's enough funding to be able to adequately care for these children. As mentioned immediately before me, this is a very big equity issue. As we know, the cost of care, it normally is quite high and has skyrocketed even further. And the truth is that these providers are still providing care for a full day. And that is expensive and that costs money. And for a lot of these providers, if the funding is not there, they will have two options. They will either have to stop taking the subsidy because there's no way that they can operate in that manner, or they're going to have to charge non-subsidy parents an exorbitant amount just to try to ensure that their operations can continue. And so we encourage you to do the full day rates to prevent either of those options from happening and ensure that care can be provided as we enter the school year. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Farhad Hussein. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Next up is Kay Boning. Kay Boning.
Who?
Farhad Hussein or Kay? lastly, we have Catherine Canales.
Hi, yes, I am from Kids Cottage Child Development Center here in Mission, Texas. We are in South Texas, and right now the pandemic has hit us greatly. We have a lot of families who have also lost homes due to our recent hurricane. And given everything that is going on, that we have so many down here, the numbers of COVID are so high. Schools down here are not giving parents the choice of sending kids back to school. We have been told that all children will have remote learning. Our parents are questioning if they send their children to school or to daycare, if the daycare is going to be able to help children with their schoolwork while parents are at work. And we obviously want to provide the best child care that we can for these parents. So we don't want to have to tell them no, or have to tell them that we have to charge them more for child care. And I also agree with the other comments that have been made. It puts a tremendous struggle on these daycare centers to not only comply with social distancing, the masks, and everything else, but it also has us have to hire new teachers so that we can keep in compliance.
Of the comment? I may have lost you. Are there any other people here like to address the commission on this topic? Please go ahead and introduce yourself. Isa Guerra.
Hello, 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 hello.
Hello.
Hi, this is, my name's Annette Ugalde Benuglin. I'm with Kinder Club Learning Center. And I'm in Laredo, Texas. And thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to speak. But currently the situation that we're encountering here in Laredo, Texas is that the students are not, the after-school students are not going back to the classroom. They will not be doing face-to-face. They're doing remote distant learning, and my center has established a assistant program for that. They will be with us full day care because parents do work 8 hours a day. So they're gonna, meanwhile, they will be with us full day, and we will be assisting them with their virtual learning. But the situation we're running into is that we are not gonna be, the parents are not, we will not be paid the full-time rate. We are under the partial rate. So I just wanted to advocate for the parents that being that the students are not going back to school, that there should be enough funding to cover full-time costs for the after-school students that will be having full day. And so we just want to make sure that there's enough adequate funding to make sure that the parents, could use the programs that we're offering. And we just want to make sure that there's enough funding to cover full day care for the students that will not be going back to class face-to-face learning, and they'll be doing distant learning with the learning centers and the daycares. They're going to be with us full day, so we should be paid full day for them and not part day, because technically they're going to be with us full day now until probably God knows when they're going to reopen the schools. We don't know.
Thank you very much. Are there anyone else who would like to address the commission on this topic? Commissioners, we have received several written comments on this matter, all of which have been provided to the commissioners and will be made part of the formal record. So with that, Commissioners, this matter is now before you for your deliberation and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Trollman. All right, Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments from Ms. Miller?
Yes, Chairman, I'd like to thank Ms. Miller for the hard work that she's put forth on this agenda item. I also would like to thank those who provided remarks today for allowing us to recognize their concerns and, of course, their comments. I'd also like to thank them for the care that they give to our young children and the love that they convey to them on a daily basis.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to applaud the fact that you early on said we need to be flexible and nimble, and that's something that Reagan and the team have been doing, and as we try to provide the best solutions for those that are in the child care providers, we'll continue to do exactly that. And I also would like to thank those that have provided public testimony. We appreciate what you're doing and know that work is hard and essential, and we're going to do our best to accommodate where we can, whenever we can.
So Reagan has an item before us for our consideration as the commission. Is there any motions on that item?
Yes, sir. For this specific item, I'd like to move that we approve full-time subsidies for students who do not have the option to physically access in-person instructions based upon the school schedule, and authorize after-school or part-time subsidies for students who do have the option to physically access in-person instruction as discussed.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We're unanimous.
Thank you, Commissioners. The second item we have this afternoon concerns Child Care Development Block Grant CARES Act funding, and we're seeking your direction on budgeting some additional funds for several child care related strategies. First, we're seeking your direction on extending the temporary 25% enhanced reimbursement rates through December. We are estimating that we need an additional $53.8 million for this effort. That would bring the total amount budgeted for enhanced reimbursement rates to $153.8 million. Attachment 1 of your document provides the initial estimated amounts needed to reimburse boards for these costs through October. We're seeking the Commission's direction on approving these funds and authorizing staff to make funds available to the boards to support the actual costs of the enhanced reimbursement rates through December based on actual billings and actual need. Secondly, we're seeking your direction on budgeting an additional $19.3 million to address the higher costs of childcare that we've seen as a result of COVID during this board contract year. These higher costs can be attributed to items outside of the board's control. For example, when we waived parent co-payments in May, we paid the full cost of childcare, and we estimated that cost between $10 and $11 million. In addition, we also experienced increased costs when schools closed last spring, and many children who were previously receiving part-time after-school care then needed full-time childcare. For this, we are seeking the Commission's direction in budgeting up to $19.3 million to address these higher board contract year 20 costs, and authorizing staff to make funds available to boards based on each area's specific higher costs resulting from COVID that were outside of the board's control. And we would brief each of your offices on the amounts needed board by board. The last item is an increase to next year's board contract year 21 child care allocation through a supplemental distribution of $33.3 million. Looking forward into next year, we are continuing to anticipate higher costs as a result of COVID and the impact that the varying school schedules will have on the need for full-day subsidies rather than those part-time subsidies as we were just discussing. Looking at the higher costs of care that we've experienced this year and projecting these forward, we will be able to serve fewer children. This $33.3 million investment would allow us to address these projected higher costs and increase the number of kids that we would be able to serve. And while we don't have the BCY 21 targets yet, we're waiting for the final market rate survey. We are looking at some initial estimates, and I will say this is an estimate, but we're hoping that this additional investment could support around 5,000 more children per day. Attachment 2 provides the board distribution amounts, and we're seeking your direction in moving forward with this supplemental allocation. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Comments or questions?
No comments, sir.
None here.
Do we have a motion?
Yes, Chairman. I move that for the Child Care and Development Block Grants, CARES Act funds, we authorize the extension of the 25% enhanced reimbursement rates, which is estimated to cost $53.8 million through December, that we direct staff to make approximately 50% of the funds available to the boards now, and that staff make the remaining funds available based upon the amounts needed to support the actual reimbursement of the enhanced reimbursement rates through December 2020. I also move that we direct staff to distribute up to $19.3 million to boards to address the higher cost of childcare that boards have experienced due to COVID during board contract year 2020. And that staff will brief each of our offices on these costs prior to the distribution of these funds. And finally, I move that we approve a supplemental distribution of $33.3 million in board contract year 2021.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. We're unanimous.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Reagan.
Thank you. Do we have anything additional under agenda item 12?
Just one quick thing. Per the governor's directive, TWC has submitted its request for a grant to FEMA for the lost wage assistance program, and we are awaiting FEMA's response on that.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Mr. Cerna?
No, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Let's move to agenda item 13, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding approval of local workforce development board nominees.
Good afternoon, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Alvarez, Commissioner Demerson, and Mr. Cerna. For the record, Shanta Williams with the Workforce Development Division. Before you for consideration, we have workforce board nominees for Workforce Solutions Capital Area, Greater Dallas, Middle Rio Grande, Northeast Texas, Central Texas, Permian Basin, and South Plains. This concludes my presentation, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Answer questions?
Chairman, no questions.
I'm here.
Do we have a motion?
Yes, sir. I move that we approve the board nominees for Capital Area, Greater Dallas, Middle Rio Grande, Northeast Texas, Central Texas, Permian Basin, and South Plains as discussed by staff.
Second that motion.
Been moved and seconded. We're unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have an executive director's report today?
No, sir, nothing else to report.
All right, is there any other order of business to come before the commission?
None here, Chairman.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Chairman, Commissioner, I move that we adjourn.
I second that motion.
Been moved and seconded to adjourn, and we're adjourned. Thank you all.
Have a good rest of the week, which is